Okay, so I think we're gonna get started. Sorry for the delay. It's our first time doing a hybrid in-person plus Zoom meeting. Really hope my video isn't on because I don't need that. Nobody needs to see that. All right. So hi, I'm Marissa DuPont. Welcome to Solidarity Lowell general meeting. So this is the next one. Is it this one? Is it this one? There we go. So please bear with us with technical difficulties. This meeting is being recorded. It will be put on our YouTube channel. By staying in the meeting, you agree to be recorded. To speak in person, please raise your hand. On Zoom, please use the raise hand function, or type an asterisk into the chat. Our timekeeper is Lisa Arnold, who is on Zoom. So please be mindful of time limits. Step up, step back. That just means if you've been talking a lot, obviously step back a little bit and let someone else speak. If you haven't spoken, please speak up. We want to hear from everybody. And please speak slowly. Okay, so 5:30, this is our agenda. At 5:30, land acknowledgement, brief attendee intros. 5:40, we're already late. Solidarity Lowell intro, news and committee updates. 5:50, allied organizations updates. 6:05, our speaker, Brad, will be speaking, and our discussion of the unhoused camps. And at 6:55, we'll wrap up. We'll try to stay on track. Ooh, blocking the thing. There we go. So the social distance hour, quarter hour, please introduce yourself. I'll call on everybody. Give your name, your pronouns, where you live, and if you had to teach a class on one thing, what would it be? So I guess we'll start with the in-person folks. Just to make it easy. It's here.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Maria Zaroulis.
Your pronouns, and if you could teach a class on one thing, what would it be?
Pronouns would be she, her. I live here in Lowell, Massachusetts, and if I could teach a class on one thing, it would be on empathy.
Buitenhuys, he, him, South Lowell, and if I could teach a class, it would be in geometry. Ryan Hammond, he, him, downtown. And if I could teach a class in one thing, it would be the history of urban development in Detroit.
Hi, I am Joe Boyle, he, him. I'm a member of the Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee. I live in the Lowell Highlands, and if I could teach a class in one thing, it would be English as a second language, because that's the thing that I have taught classes in. And like,
hi, I'm Glenn Cody, he, him, his. I went to school in Lowell and lived here for a few years, but I currently live in Acton, but happy to be here again. If I could teach a class in one thing, I did lead a folk dance once. That was nice. I got into folk dancing in college, and it's honestly probably worth more than my bachelor's degree. So
Hi, I'm Ron Peachtree. My pronouns are he, his, him. I live here, in fact, not less than 2 miles away. If I was teaching a class, I think I would teach one on evidence-based critical thinking.
Thank you. She, her. I live in the Highlands, and I would teach a class on herbalism.
Chris Apperman, pronouns she, her, live downtown, and since I was just yesterday teaching a neighbor how to sew cushions, covers for her couch cushions, I will teach a class in sewing cushions.
I'm Heather Prince Doss, she, her, and I live in Centerville. If I could teach a class on anything, right now I'm working on preparing a class on atonement theologies.
Paul Godet from the Highland section, pronouns are he, him. And if I could teach a class, probably would be either folk dancing, as was mentioned earlier.
wow.
Or square dancing.
Oh.
Hi, Julie Winslow, born in actually Pawtuckaville, worked there many years now, live in Chelmsford. And I would say if I had to teach a class, I'm a nurse, I'm a hospice nurse, I would teach end of life care.
Hi, I'm Ella McDuffie. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from Chelmsford, Massachusetts. And if I could teach a class in anything, it would be like an early childhood education or elementary school education, because that's what I'm in school for, to study.
Hi, Michelle, pronouns she, her. I live in the Acre in Lowell. If I could teach anything, it'd be art.
Hi, my name is Pastor Dwayne Wheeler. I
Hey,
live
I'm
in
Mitch
Lower
Paul. I'm
Belt.
from the Acre in Lowell. He, him, if I could teach a class on something, it would be energy, the economy, and the environment.
Hi, I'm Pastor
I'm
Dwayne.
Barrington, live in North
Okay.
Chelmsford. He,
Good.
him. If I could teach a class probably on dismantling white privilege, as if I knew how to do
I
that.
have a call about all this crap going on.
Hi, I'm Molly Garrett. I live in Tewksbury. I'm the editor of the Tewksbury Carnation, my friend of Maria's. And I guess I would teach a class on the importance of local media and working with them. She, her.
Okay.
Hello. Hi.
My pronouns are she, her. I live in, I almost said Pawtuckaville. I don't live there anymore. I live in South Lowell. I'm wearing a mask because my mom's having surgery on Tuesday, so I hope it's not muffling me too much. And if I could teach a class on anything, it would be about letterboxing, which is a hobby that involves finding hand-carved stamps hidden in Tupperware in the woods.
Let's go to Amy. Are you good on your screen?
Okay. You're on your way over. Okay, I'm just coming over. Amy Baranowski, she, her, hers. I live in the Acre, and I've changed my mind 3 times now about how to answer this, but I think I'm going to go with vegetarian cooking. I would.
Oh. Hi, everybody. Caroline Snow, she, her, hers. I live in Centerville, and I would teach a class on how to actually tell time.
Lisa, why don't you go next? Oops.
I believe that's me. Oh, no. Yes. Hi, Lisa Arnold. I am another member of the Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee. I live downtown, she, her. And I'm going to go with all these dancing people. I actually used to run a nightclub teaching Lindy Hop. So I would do that again.
I think you have to unmute now.
I did.
You did? Okay.
Oh, did you not hear me?
I can't make it any louder.
That's fine. I got it.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Lisa, can you go again? We had some tech issues.
All right. Lisa Arnold, I'm with the Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee. She, her. I live downtown, and I would teach a class in Lindy Hop. So.
Okay. Jamie, why don't you go next?
Hi guys, I'm Jaime Dillon. I'm the Executive Director of Life Connection Center. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Worcester. I was born in Lowell. I've worked in Lowell for a long time. I work at Appleton Street. And I have had to teach a class that would be on abstract painting. And definitely if someone's gonna do some letterboxing, can you email me? I wanna go.
On it. All right, Matthew 25, I know that's not your real name, but could you unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Yep, my name is Patricia, pronouns are she, her. Live in Lowell. And if I were to teach a class, it would be on kindness and compassion.
John?
Is that me?
Yes.
John Grossman, he, him. I live in Lowell. And I regularly teach about how to be a labor union activist.
Rick?
Rick Golden. I live up on Christian Hill, he, him, and I would teach a course on obscure rock bands of the early 70s.
Zoe?
Hi everyone, my name is Zoe Zaniku. She, her, hers. I live in Centerville, going towards, I guess, Christian Hill. If I had to teach a class, it would be on African dance.
Nice. Lisa B?
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Buitenhuys. I identify as she, her. I live in Bristol, New Hampshire, and I would teach a class in cooking.
Nice.
And yeah, but I'd rather go dancing.
DW's phone, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, Pastor Dwayne Wheeler, pastor in the city of Lowell. I live in Lower Belvedere, and if I was to teach a class, it will be a class in Black history.
Nice. Eric Gitcher?
Eric Gitcher. I live in the he, him. I live in the Highlands section of the city of Lowell, and if I were able to teach a class, it would be ethics and government.
Nice. Ken?
Hey, everybody. It's Ken Richer, he, him. I would teach a class in woodwork.
D?
Hi, sorry, I had trouble unmuting. Dee Halzak, she, her. I live in the acre. I would teach a class on writing letters to the editor.
Is it IMG or LMG? LMG?
It's LMG. It's really Leanne Gillis. She, her, hers. I live in Pawtucketville, and if I could teach a class, it would be running, fitness, and well-being.
Nice. Linda Cantor?
Hi, Linda Cantor. I live in downtown Lowell. I'm more of a student than a teacher, but if I could teach a class, it would be how to follow a recipe and baking bread.
Nice. Okay, great. Where did it go? I just wasn't sure if I should mute again. No. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. It's so tempting to just sit and I know I shouldn't. So just a land acknowledgement. I put 10 Main Street. I know that's the wrong address, but 10 Arlington Street in Dracut. We stand on the land of the following local areas. It's Wabanaki, Pennacook, Pentucket, Pawtucket, and Agawam. And that's from nativeland.ca. So I'm going to stand up now. I have to make myself. Oh, that's a problem though. Hold on. We're going to get used to this stuff. Okay. Solidarity Lowell, if you're not familiar, is a volunteer-based group of community members of Greater Lowell working towards social justice by defending the human rights, dignity, and equality of all persons against hate and discrimination. We welcome new members. The coordinating committee, folks could just raise their hands if you're on the coordinating committee. Cool. It's your elected team of volunteers running the meetings, organizing events, disseminating relevant news, and sharing calls to action. Please contact us after the meeting if you're interested in learning more. Cooperate. Oh, I know, because I clicked elsewhere. There we go. Progressive Massachusetts. Solidarity Lowell is a chapter of Progressive Mass. It's a statewide member-driven grassroots organization committed to fighting for a vision of shared prosperity, racial and social justice, good government, and environmental sustainability in Massachusetts. And you can visit their website or contact us after the meeting for learning more. Latest news from them is that their annual meeting is next Saturday, January 28th at 1 p.m. For more information, just talk to one of us, or you can go to that bit.ly. Victories. So we like to share positive news because there's so much negative news. So Harvard University named Claudine Gay as president, becoming the first Black person and second woman to hold the position. Senator Patty Murray became the first Senate president pro tempore. Fundraising platform Act Blue named Regina Wallace Jones as its first Black woman CEO. And New York opened its first recreational marijuana store owned by a person previously criminalized over cannabis. Any other positive news that anyone would like to share? Things that have happened? Anyone online? Oh, John Grossman. Okay. Oh, geez, don't share that. This one. And I get it. Yeah, I'm okay. John, do you want to go?
Yeah, two pieces of positive news. Since at least I was last at a meeting. One is the new governor created state's first cabinet level climate czar. And two, in December, 3,000 Boston University graduate workers voted to organize with SEIU Local 509.
Nice.
Some of whom live in Lowell.
Oh, cool. Anyone else? Positive news? Try to look at both now. Okay, well, in the interest of time, let's move on. Okay, so the elections committee, please stay tuned for more information about the upcoming city council race. Lisa and Dee Halzak, who are both online, are the folks to contact if you're interested in joining that committee. They're the ones that focus on like the upcoming city council race and things like that. So if you're interested in joining, please contact one of them. The Merrimack Valley Interfaith Sanctuary Network, I am the volunteer coordinator for Solidarity Lowell. Currently, we've been supporting an asylum seeker, Marius from Togo, who we have assisted since he arrived here in 2018. He and another asylum seeker, Lillian, who is from the Dominican Republic, had a baby last year. The baby's name is Yaira. She's adorable, and she is in need of clothing size 9 months and diapers size 5. Or you can just donate gift cards, and all of that can be given to me. Just shoot me an email or talk to me at the meeting. Marius also, if you haven't heard him speak and tell his story, I definitely recommend it. It's a lot. And he will be speaking at the Andover Library's Courageous Conversation series in April. He also has a GoFundMe, which is right there. We can give you that link when we send out the notes. Unpacking whiteness is another thing that I do. Individuals committed to exploring their own racial biases are invited to participate in the dialogue group. We can engage in supportive, structured dialogues to explore whiteness in contemporary society, especially to better understand the legacy and impact of white supremacy, white privilege, explicit and implicit bias, systemic racism, and microaggressions. Dialogue group is 5 sessions, and it's capped at 10 people. And then after the dialogue group, there's an ongoing group, which meets once a month and alternates between discussing a book or watching a film, which I appreciate because that means you have 2 months to read the book, just which is true for a lot of groups. And you can sign up at that bit.ly/UW/hyphen sign up, or you can talk to me. Okay. So allied group updates and announcements. This is for anybody who's involved in any other groups and you want to share information. There's an event coming up for whatever that you think Solidarity Lowell members might be interested in. Does anyone have any information from allied groups that they should share? Paul.
I belong to a group called Merrimack Valley Project, 30-year-old organization. And as of 2023, we're trying to expand and build power throughout the Merrimack Valley. We have 3 chapters, Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill. And we're trying to get the word out that organizations are welcome. It was founded originally with faith communities, labor unions, and community organizations. And that's kind of like our DNA. And the issues that we attack change from year to year. We just had some victories, of course, in the question 4 and question 1. And we also are very proud of our Wheels of Hope program with a fly right there on that bulletin board with that wing shape, which gives free rides to people who are in crisis for substance use disorder. So I have some information about what membership entails if you'd like to take a copy of the organization. That's it. Thank you.
I recently said that I would head up a team that's going to be accompanying a Afghan family of 9 that will be, we think they'll be coming to Lowell
in next month. They're out of Afghanistan, they're not there, but I would love to talk to anybody who's done refugee resettlements, just to share things, and also if anybody is interested in being part of this team we're looking for lots of people to take little parts. And I've been working with Essentially.
John. Get back over here so I can see him. John, do you want to go?
Yeah, thanks. 350 Master Climate Group is working with a group of other folks in Lowell on trying to help people reduce their energy costs by making their living places more energy efficient, and various other ways that exist right now to do that. And one of the easiest ways to do it if you live in Lowell is to contact the city of Lowell, which recently hired an energy advocate. His name is Victor, and I'm going to put his phone number and email in the chat, but his job is to help people manage the mass save energy efficiency process, which really can help you save money on your heating bills and electric bills if you own your home, or if you can convince your landlord to call them. But there are other steps you can take even if you're a renter. Also, we can help you switch on to the city's community choice aggregation program, which if you're not on it, that will save you some serious money likely save you some serious money on your electric bill, and also make your electricity use much greener. So I'll put that information in the chat of how to reach him. I don't know if that helps the people in the meeting room or not, but
Well, we'll put it in the notes so they'll get
yeah,
it.
be in the notes, or if you contact City Hall and ask for the energy advocate, they can hook you up.
Any others? Make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, gotta hide this now. So, okay, so we've come to the time for our speaker, Brad, who is the executive director of Lowell Litter Crew, alumnus of AmeriCorps NCCC, which is the National Civilian Community Corps, holds a BS from UML in civil engineering, and received an MS from Wentworth in construction management. He is the vice chair of the Lowell Conservation Commission and a member of the Community Preservation Committee. Welcome, Brad.
I'm here in front of you not as the director of the Lowell Litter Crew, but like you, a concerned resident of Lowell. Look, I was wrong in creating Wallingford, but I'm glad that I was there. What I saw there was disappointing, to say the least. I'll share some thoughts about we, a group of neighbors with no prerequisite skills other than passion, can do to make sure that when a city performs another sweep, that the pieces are in place to make the process protect the lives and well-being of the people there. I know that planning for an inevitable sweep is not what many of you had in mind. But I will say this, the conditions in many of these camps are hazardous. Until several, not one, but several Lowellians who advocate for free and uninhibited use of public space are elected to city council, the direction that the city is headed in is to ban campsites from the city entirely. I hope that this does not come as a surprise. The city's intention behind sweeps in January, when it's the hardest to relocate due to the amount of possessions required to stay warm, is because more beds are available under winter protocol. And legally, these beds are required before a camp can be evacuated. Relocation to another site is a
The room just went mute. Can you unmute the room and move it closer, please?
Can you hear me now?
Thank you, Lisa.
All set, thank you.
In the immediate together, we can improve the conditions of relocation. Starting with the Boston Homeless Encampment Liaison Protocol, some changes are already being advocated for in the city manager's office by myself and Solidarity Lowell. Request that prior to each cleanout, the city issue a public document outlining available beds compared to the number of residents they intend to evacuate. Request that a city liaison be on site for several days prior to the evacuation, able to provide resources and rides to shelter or appropriate facilities with the intent of maximizing the likelihood that an encampment resident enters into the care of the established resource providers. This will also give time for the city to properly address non-English speaking residents in their native language. Request that notice is to be posted at the camp providing exact time and date of the sweep to ensure that all residents receive the notification and are able to prepare. Request that a no-throw zone be established at the site prior to commencement of cleanout. It is the intent of these protocol amendments to put in place a system which relocates all residents prior to the cleanout, but in the case that people are still living at the camp on the day of evacuation, that their belongings are clearly protected. Request for storage of personal belongings for any Lowellian who is forced to relocate. The aim here is to prevent the loss of unique documentation and personal items, which will only make the process of leaving homelessness more difficult in the future. Request that the Lowell Homeless Encampment Liaison Protocol address these and future recommendations and be available publicly via the City of Lowell website. I encourage all of you in assisting with adding to this list. In order to express our collective desire of protection for our unhoused neighbors, we need to continue on from this plan. Encourage our city and state to develop more wraparound services, establish a 24/7 intake center, and make it clear to our counselors that Lowell is a city is not ready for a ban on camping. We do not have the services in place to get everyone out of the cold if they so choose. And until those services are in place, we are putting lives at risk every single day. Thank you. I very much would encourage people to pass along comments as they so choose. I'm happy to receive comments. I know that the folks at Solidarity Lowell, are talking about this and are ready to receive. My email is bradthedutch, D-U-T-C-H, like somebody from Holland, @gmail.com. This is a working document, and it is something that, the city manager's office is already aware of. Our collective adding to this is something that will be pushed forward. I expect this to be a real thing, and it's a start. I'm not saying that this is the answer. But well, in reality, I see the comments coming in just as something that we can kind of add up a list of all of our thoughts, right? Weed out the duplicates, pass it along to the city, and let them formally respond to what they think they can do, what they think is the role of existing service providers in the area. I don't know how this proceeds. I don't. It's a valid point to have us all sign on to a document once we agree on it, but I don't want that to inhibit the flexible nature of us being able to add suggestions to these things when they arise. This is something that I'm only involved in because of a mistake that I made. Fixing the first most easily attainable, humanity-based, caring solutions of something that, without any other change, the city is going to continue doing is the first step, as far as I see.
Do you know what were the agencies actually involved with preparing?
I don't know. Can you restate that?
Were any of the social service agencies like Lowell Transitional Living Center, the family shelters, the other group that are working with unhoused folks, were they involved in any kind of outreach in this case?
As a whole, the city is meeting with the service providers, the main service providers regularly.
I can.
Yeah.
So the
Great.
elderly in front of the day center. we're aware of the schedule of encampment closures, and we're passing the word on to our community members. We weren't involved with the closure itself, but we were made aware of them and were able to share the information so that people could prepare as much as possible. That said, not everybody in those encampments comes to our center.
Can I ask a question? So, I guess this is more towards, maybe you know, but possibly other people know here. Like, so I watched there was a video that Llama produced where they interviewed someone who was homeless, and they had in response to stuff that Tom Golden said at a city council meeting when asked, like, hey, are there beds for these people? And Tom said, yes, there's plenty of beds, 190, I think was the number. And then, like, so that wasn't the case, right? So, like, where did that number come from? And like, where, it's okay if you don't know, because I don't know either, but like, yeah.
You know, there are providers here. I'd rather not speak on exactly how many beds are available at each premises. Legally, what I can tell you is that legally, in order for an encampment to be closed, there needs to be enough beds for everybody at that camp. That is a legal requirement.
There was a federal judge that said that that's accurate. There was like a hearing, there was like a federal decision in California or something, and it's now nationwide, that there has to be beds available. But I guess, like, I looked at the Lowell Litter Crew statement, and it said that, like, the beds may have been there, but it takes like a week to get one. Was that?
Well, I don't want to get into to representing Litter Crew here. I would like to move on from our involvement in that. It was a mistake. I am here personally as a member of Lowell,
right,
of our community. So
I would just like to, I guess I'm not sure if the city was just incompetent or outright lied. My guess is towards incompetent. But I guess just like the next time they say, yes, we got plenty of beds, the sweep can go ahead. I think people should be more skeptical of that in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's a great idea. I would suggest that you guys put that on your list of comments and questions, because I totally agree. We're going to switch to online folks, and then we'll switch back to the room. Oh, that's all you, lady. Corey, do you want to go?
Yeah, Corey was first, and then Jamie.
Hey, thank you. First of all, I have a couple questions about these statements that are being made. Like, people are talking in the third party. This isn't the first encampment clean out that the Lowell Litter Crew has taken part of. So people can say, I'm not here as part of that. That's not this. For 2 years they've been going on, some active, some not active. And leading up to this clean out, on the social media post that this clean out was going to occur, there was many people that were saying, don't do this. So to turn around and backpedal and say, I didn't know that, I mean, I don't know if maybe certain things were ignored or whatever that may be. Second of all, it takes about a week to process for hotel rooms and other beds, but that doesn't mean that there's not a bed alternative. I hear us advocating because we're putting people in harm's way, but leaving people in weather conditions and leaving people sleeping on beds of potentially 200 plus discarded syringes and human waste, I think that's keeping people in harm's way. And I think even if a clean out is a temporary way to clean the area that people are relocating to, I just don't understand where's the humane approach saying we know the conditions that you're living in for whatever reason, but we're okay with leaving those conditions that way because we don't want to displace you, even if it's temporarily. And it's easy to point the finger because it's not a public thing. People have taken part of these cleanups for whatever their reason may be, and then based on pressure, it seems like a 180 away from it. I think these conversations are important. I know currently a motion was made last Tuesday that we are going to be looking to mirror the city of Boston's policy, where they're handling a lot higher volume than the city of Lowell is. These encampment cleanouts I've been out of Lowell for 4 years as an employee. For 15 years before that, we were doing encampment cleanouts, and it wasn't anything of this magnitude. They've been going on for the past, so say what, 19 years, and it's just, yes, we have to offer, and that's a given. We need more resources in the community, different kinds of resources in the community with wraparound services. We need, I think, a centralized triage can sit there and handle that has all the different resources available under their umbrella and can assign people accordingly. But in the meantime, we have to come up with a solution to provide something to the people that choose, or the people that are forced to live in encampments. We cannot allow and turn a blind eye to 400 syringes in 2 camps. That's not humane. An animal wouldn't do good in that. And so to sit there and advocate to leave people alone living in these kind of conditions where we know what these conditions are like, I think that falls on us. I think expect to clean a camp and just leave people wandering. That's definitely not the way to go. That's not the solution at all. And no one is saying that. Until we have these resources and facilities in place, and until we have a solid working solution with commitment from the 30 plus caregivers and providers in the community, I mean, we're sitting here chasing our tail. Meanwhile, there's people sleeping on top of beds of syringes and human waste. So again, thank you for this conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they've been, I'm making everybody motion sick online, so I'm not going to move the computer. But I will tilt it in your general direction for voice.
Corey, I heard you say several times that Krewe has been involved in homeless campus sweeps. This is not the case. What we have done in the past is we have cleaned up trash at homeless encampments. We have discarded everything from abandoned camps, and you can tell the abandoned ones when the tents are collapsed and nobody's around, right? These are no longer belongings. This is waste left. We as volunteers have cleaned up needles. We as volunteers have cleaned up all kinds of hazardous waste. It was our goal, my goal, for us to clean up enough trash out of homeless encampments that when the leaves finally fell off the trees, that we didn't have to listen to the people of Lowell bitch about the way that these homeless encampments looked. Unfortunately, obviously, we didn't do enough. What we didn't do was be present, waking up people out of their tents and having them forcefully removed from their premises while they scrambled to collect their belongings, and whatever they couldn't scavenge and pack into a backpack within 10 minutes was thrown away. That is the entirely different scenario from what we have participated in the past. It is completely different. And if you think otherwise, I cannot imagine how you convince yourself of that.
We're going to move on to Jamie.
Hi, I wanted to answer the question. I think somebody asked if agencies were there that day. I know that our team was there the day that Brad was there, just trying to help folks pack up some of their things and move them to wherever they were wanting to go. So I know that, you know, I know that we were there, and a lot of the agencies do try to go almost every day, right, to all the folks if we do have a list or dates or things like that, and try to work with folks to move them wherever they would like to go, whatever their different options that are they're really talking about. So we've had folks go to shelter, or if they have other options, family, or if they have someplace else that they'd like to stay outside, if they have different ideas, we just kind of follow their lead, really. It's their life. So, but we were there, and it is something that is very difficult as far as folks really don't feel like they'd like to go into different options. So we're there more of as a liaison and an advocate to support them more physically and emotionally than anything else, and spiritually. And we bring the van, and you know, Brad knows our guys and Alex and them. So that was just the only other question. I will say that it's been our experience just recently during the last storm, just trying to have folks go into the shelter. So it's a little confusing, the process that's going on right now. There seems to be just a lot of confusing communication about programs and availability. So it has been different than it's been in the past as far as communication. But we have a lot of folks that we are seeing at, you know, all different times of the night that are either banned from the shelter for life, or have had to try to get in, and for whatever reason, it's full, whether it's the weather or, you know, things change. or people that were in those settings that were asked to leave. They, didn't come home on curfew or something like that, people that lost their bed. So it is diverse as far as the need, the folks that are out there and the availability. I know that I think Manchester just had their ruling with the ACLU, was it yesterday? I think that yes, if there are enough beds for the number of people, that we can certainly try to advocate for folks to try to go indoors if that's their choice. But we feel that there are not enough, there's not enough room right now. We don't feel like we've ever had enough room, for the 8 years that we've been here referring people. And we work very, very, very closely with LTLC and Elliot and all of these folks on the ground. So we've always needed more, for sure.
Lisa?
My question is back to the list that Brad had read off as some of the things that we'd like to see. I'd like to know, what are the next steps? I know the list isn't complete. I did notice Jamie had made the comment that we need to get it printed so we can show it to the clients, because I think we'd like to find out, what their input is on that. But what happens next? How do we make sure that the next time the city decides to do a cleanup, that these things are taken into account, and that people's rights and dignity are restored?
So as a citizen's request, I would say that, any requests that we make are, at the whim of the manager's office, unfortunately. But, setting clear expectations and delivering them, as a team is the first step in making those changes. He's been willing to discuss them with us. He's made some of these changes already. The easiest ones, of course, there are some that are discounted entirely. A year ago, I went to the city council and suggested that we find a way to do a weekly trash cleanup from each of these camps and provide them with just bags. We already are getting a trash truck, and that went over like a Led Zeppelin. So yeah, if we can't.
I'll share, Brad, that the year before that, we actually piloted that exact program with trash bags and all of that, and people cleaned up their camps. They got their bags together. Waste management picked up their trash every week, and it went on, and it was great. But as a pilot, it just kind of didn't go anywhere from there. So there are other things to explore, for sure.
There's a hand up online.
Eric?
You let him know he's muted.
Eric, you're muted.
I am. I'd just like to hit on a few points that have been said. I do think it's unfair to the city manager and not letting him or his administration hear these directly in front of the audiences that are being put, because I did call him afterwards and asked him about the cleanup on Plain Street. There are a couple issues with housing in that area. We all want our protected lands to be protected. That is a wetland area. It is protected by DEP. We're throwing needles, we're going to the bathroom there. Picking up trash is not doing the environment any good. And that water gets run down to the old wells that used to be in Industrial Ave also. So those are a couple things we need to think about as we move forward. I do agree that notification is important, but I did ask that question. Were people notified? How were they treated along the way? The manager said that, as he said in public, that, everybody can do better in every situation. But my key point to everything is, how do we resolve the situation? How do we get people services that they're willing to go to? And how do we create jobs so we don't put people into the homeless situations? And how do we get mental health at the state and federal level? We all talk about leaving people in their situations, but how do we help them get out of them? And I do agree with Councilor Robinson, where we have had other cleanups and people have participated, whether it's like Brad had said, going over and cleaning up after the fact in their evacuated camps or their camps that are live, but this is not their land, and these lands are protected by Mass DEP, the EPA, especially where they are on Plain Street. As a kid, I used to walk that area, and I still live in the Highlands, and it's something we also have to protect the residents who live in the area. I had a few call me who are going into Target, and an individual who was kicked out of the homeless shelter on Middlesex Street was down there, making it extremely uncomfortable for them and their 6-year-old to go into there. So they refuse to go shopping there any longer. So I think we need to come up with ideas and solutions that actually remove people, but put them in a situation as Life Connections did with the person with the CDL driver's license. So we need to talk further than just leaving them in there and letting them do what they're doing in those areas. The needle counts are remarkable to me. And I just wanted to leave you with that.
Just two thoughts and I'll leave it there. One is that it took us 40 years to get into this housing crisis, and it'll probably take us 40 years to get out. Second of all, maybe instead of a bed being available as the criteria, like a bed is offered to each person there, and you gotta know the names of the people there. That, I think that'd be an improvement.
I've been listening, and I'm listening to a lot of confusion as well as a lot of people who are going to different directions. So I'm hoping I can go to statistics and hard data of public policy. And first and foremost, there is no data to support the idea that tent cities increase crime in the area. There is no hard data to support the idea that violent crime to anyone except for the people who are the residents of those tent cities tends to be more at risk, just like the conversation with transgender people and gay people, for the record. The sanitation issues, often when the city provides free dumpsters or something, people who do not live in the tent cities end up using those as illegal dump sites and causing the problem, and the people who are in the tent cities end up getting blamed for it. There is a lot of stuff going on here that is basically people from a certain social situation do not like the looks of having certain kinds of people involved. And let us be very, very honest, in today's economy, any one of us could end up in that tent city ourselves. The land does not belong to any of us. I'll speak from the Native American point of view here. We all live on the mother as a piece of grace. I am desperately concerned about it being clean, but I'm both a Boy Scout and a member of the SCA, and every year they put together encampments that last for as long as a month for as many as 20,000 people, and they take care of sanitation and water and food and shelter, and the places are safe. If they can do that, and some of them are literally kids, a city with a city budget should be able to handle the encampment problem in a more intelligent fashion than let it get bad until we sweep it under the rug, which is basically what we're trying to do. Corey mentioned doing this for 19 years. That should be proof that this is a problem that is not going away by doing sweeps. We need to think about people who have been displaced and don't have places to live as a permanent part of our population that we desperately would like to not have, but they're a reality and they're not going to go away anytime soon until, as somebody mentioned, we make systemic changes like living minimum wages, jobs, etc. So the tent cities are real, displaced are real. Sweeping them isn't going to fix the problem. What we need to worry about is how do you create good conditions in them. 30 to 40% of the people who are in there are people who need high-level social services that, thanks to the Reagan years and a couple other things, we don't have them anymore. Those people need psych beds. Those people need drug counseling. Those people need whatever. 30 to 40% of them. But the rest of them, 60 to 70% of them, are people who are just down on their luck. They are moms who are living out of station wagons with their 3 kids, etc., etc., etc. These aren't the criminal element. These are people who are in horrible shape. We should be talking about systemic ways of making those camps as safe as possible, because I agree with Corey and everybody else, the needles and everything shouldn't be there. But sweeping things up, throwing everybody's stuff out, and then letting them back out on the street as a quote unquote solution, that's not only not a solution, that's not the kind of country I want to live in. I'm sorry if I went too long. I apologize.
D.
Hi, I wanted to add to the list that Brad suggested, because it needs to specifically include transportation of the belongings that are going to be stored. In several conversations I've had with people about this issue in the past week, it was always, oh yeah, that's a good idea. We didn't think of that though. A lot of the people in the camps don't have transportation. So 2 days notice is not going to do them any good if they're not offered help moving their goods. Thank you.
I'm trying. There's a hump.
Okay.
You're on.
Hi.
Oh, thank you.
What I'm about to say may answer a lot of the questions that have already come up. And I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can, because I have a lot to say about all of this. I often speak publicly on the subject of homelessness in my job, and this is the first time that I'm openly speaking about my own personal experience with it. My family and I have very strong ties to the city of Lowell, and many people have no idea that this ever even happened to me. So it's kind of like a coming out party. Domestic situations are complicated, so I will be leaving out the details. I will touch on how homelessness occurs, and I will speak a little bit about the intersection of trauma and homelessness and how this relates to the encampment sweep that occurred on January 12th. And I'm sure everyone agrees that there have been no shortage of opinions and misconceptions of what the face of homelessness looks like. Dirty, mentally ill, junkie, not wanting to be part of society. I've heard everything. And although sometimes this may be true, it is not completely accurate. We have a rising homeless population with the elderly, the handicapped, and the working middle class, and they are known as the invisible homeless. So I was an elected official on the Tewksbury Board of Health. I sat on multiple committees and charitable organizations. I had a big house and I went to work every day, ironically at a homeless shelter. And I became unhoused during the height of COVID. I did see this coming, so I made an action plan. I grabbed items that I felt would be most necessary, and I moved into my car. And it was sometime in May. I had a little pop-up tent with a camping toilet. Now, most people, when I start talking about this, when I say that I was homeless, look at me like I'm making this up, because do I look like all those things that everybody talks about? Do I look like that person in the encampment with all those needles and feces? No, I don't. So this is the reality. So the best part about me moving into my car and fleeing my home was that it didn't scare me at all. It actually felt like a relief. And during that time, I could not move into somebody's house because there was a lockdown. I couldn't go to a campground because they were all closed. Moving into a hotel would not be sustainable for more than maybe a week due to the expense. And I stayed outside until mid-September, so about 4 months, until a friend of mine called and she was concerned that the weather was getting colder at night, and she asked me to come stay at her house, which I did. And what I thought would have been a few weeks turned into 4 months. Now, during this whole time, I kept looking for an apartment that I could afford that would take me and my dog, which is another issue. And I couldn't find anything because, as we all know, there was a moratorium on evictions. People weren't moving. Yes.
So sorry, I forgot your name.
My name's Maria, Maria Zaroulis.
Thank you.
Maria Zaroulis, if nobody caught that. Sorry. So I stayed there with my friend for about 4 months. And as many people that are unhoused will tell you, you know, you can only stay somewhere for so long. Relationships become strained. You don't want to ruin your support system. So I felt that it was time to go. And I had nowhere else to go. It was now February. Out of desperation, I considered moving back into my home temporarily since I had the legal right, knowing this was not going to be safe. And many women in my situation end up doing just that. And we all know how that story typically ends. A friend at the police department advised me to not go there unless I was filing a restraining order, which, due to my circumstances, I decided that would not be a good idea. Lowell Transitional would not be the right fit for me, but I would have gone there if I had to. So this is around the time where people start to break down psychologically. And a few people, friends of mine, did witness me begin to unravel instead of my usual sarcastic humor that I use during difficult times. You become hyper-focused on survival while trying to keep all the balls in the air to appear normal on the outside. And it becomes harder and harder as time goes on. And it was a level of panic that I don't think I've ever experienced in my life. More so because it was the middle of winter and I knew the challenges that I would be facing moving back into my car. Hysterically crying, I called another friend and she immediately cleared out her porch, and that's where I went. She's actually here today. Thank you. I remember that phone call. Sorry. But thank you. She knows I'm terrible at asking for help for anything. I had already applied for 40B housing, and that process is slightly flawed in instances like mine. The only address I had was the home that I had fled. I hadn't lived there in months. They wanted 3 years of tax returns in which I had filed jointly, and they insisted they needed to speak to my husband. So thankfully I've got a mouth and I can advocate for myself, and I fought for them not to contact him. I had to explain my situation, which I found humiliating. And this is also very unsafe for women in situations like mine. So I was placed on a waiting list that could be at least a year long. And I went on to continue looking for another affordable apartment. The good news is eventually I did get into that apartment, the 40B apartment. And in total, I was unhoused for about 1 year. Had that not happened and I had that good luck that somebody just either moved out or died or whatever happened there, where would I have ended up? It's very possible I would have been in that encampment that was cleaned out on January 12th. And there's a tremendous amount of trauma that goes along with all of this that I'm not going to get into. And I hadn't considered that that would have happened. But those symptoms started to show once I sort of settled a little bit in my own place. So I can relate to all these folks at the homeless encampment that had all their belongings disposed of, because I too had everything I owned taken from me. My family home that I grew up in, personal items, family heirlooms, everything. And it's a terrible feeling of violation. All I had was what would fit in my car. And that was another level of trauma that I had to accept. So what may appear to be trash to you, every single thing serves a purpose to these people living on the street. By disposing of these items adds another level of trauma on top of what they have already experienced, and most likely experienced much earlier in their life, that led them to where they are right now. And Over the last few years, through a lot of healing and introspection, I can trace back to my childhood why this happened. And because I had endured trauma early on. And it's funny, subconsciously, I had been preparing for this moment most of my life. And all it took was one more traumatic event to make me run. And in doing so, I completely broke the cycle of all the ways I had been living my life due to that past trauma. And if you spend the time and you speak to all of these unhoused people on the street, they will often tell you a very similar story. Once you begin to peel back the layers of the onion, as I like to describe it, no one chooses to become homeless. Many start out just as I did. And now you can see how easily this can happen. Over the last 3 years, women in domestic violence situations make up for a large portion of your homeless population right now. You run out of couches to crash on. Your support systems break down. And it's not easy moving in with a family that have their own lives and dynamics. You stay in the space that you've been given because you don't want to be a burden. It's embarrassing. You don't want to interfere in their lives. Some people may be predisposed to mental illness or substance use disorder, and that trauma triggers that to become active. This adds to the inability to think of anything other than survival. A lot of people will become unemployed during this time because it's a challenge to keep your job while you're going through all of this. And I hear a lot of people say, well, everyone has a choice, and that is not necessarily true. Not everyone has friends and family that's going to help them. Someone may be incapable of working full-time due to an illness or a physical, issue. Some people may have children in their care. They may not even know what resources are available to them. I work in the field and I know all the resources, and even I was too focused on survival to contact these people. And I was in complete denial that this was even happening. I'm also incredibly stubborn. I will say this, when my supervisor at the House of Hope discovered my situation, I got a long talking to and a much needed reality check, and their case management and housing advocates were extremely helpful to me during that time. And even they were surprised that I was able to come to work every day with people going through the same thing that I was. And here I am, never letting on that this was happening, and I would leave work to go sleep in my car or porch. Beautiful porch. It's now been 3 years, and I still carry all my survival gear in my car just in case, because I'm conditioned that these items are the most valuable things that I have. I still look around my home and I think of things that I can get rid of that won't fit in my car that serve a purpose. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I never feel settled, and I'm ready to pack up and go at any moment. And when I hear people say that this only happens to junkies and crazy people and losers, I am so insulted by this ignorance. My opinion on what happened on January 12th is that the plan failed to factor in the human element, to take into consideration the feelings of these people. And I'm not arguing that the encampment should not be cleaned out. It is indeed a health hazard, but it should never be done in the winter. And in case, I know there's some city council members on here or anyone else didn't know this information, I'm going to give it to you right now. But the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness clearly states the 7 principles for addressing encampments. Establish a cross-agency, multi-sector response. Engage encampment residents to develop solutions. Conduct comprehensive and coordinated outreach. Address basic needs and provide storage.
ensure access to shelter and housing options, develop pathways to permanent housing and supports, create a plan for what will happen to encampment sites after closure. And it seems to me that some of these steps got missed or just disregarded completely.
Yes.
Thank you. Because it took, if we look, it took Boston a very long time to properly clear out the mass and cast encampment, and more folks continue to show up there. So this problem is not going to go away, but clearly a lot of these steps were missed. And I find it hard to believe that all of these meetings with multiple community agencies that allegedly occurred, no one thought to follow these steps. It's right there in front of you at your fingertips. I also realize that a lot of these people will refuse help. Let them go on their way with their belongings until we try again. In my opinion, it speaks to the lack of experience of whoever made this plan. And frankly, there needs to be some accountability, not excuses. If you don't have empathy for another human being and you work with the homeless population, you are in the wrong job, because empathy is a requirement. You can learn everything else. We can give you the answers. And the message that was sent of what happened that day looked more like a statement that the city was trying to show that they were doing something. And you did something all right. You divided neighbors and communities. You caused a level of mistrust in our local government and leaders. And I see a lot of finger pointing. Not Lowell Litter Crew's fault. It's not the DPW or the police department's fault. It's a systemic problem that needs to be fixed. And my questions for the city are, how can we help the people tasked to solve this? Where did the breakdown in communication happen? Is there a checks and balance system between these departments? And how can we help the city do better next time? Because this is not a one-size-fits-all solution, because each individual has a completely different story of how they ended up on the street. And those tasked with this need to get on the ground, talk to these people, and hear their stories. Only then will you be able to understand how to better help them. I can't tell you how many phone calls that have come in to the shelter I work at since that day, from people looking for beds, the police asking where they can put people to get them out of the elements. And now that I've churned up all my trauma, I'm going to really go off script right now. Sorry, folks. You know, some people may think that I just run my mouth, but I certainly don't talk out of my ass. And I don't have my hands in anybody's pockets. I don't need your votes. And this is not a popularity contest. I'm just a person who cares about another human being. And I'm not expecting the city of Lowell to solve the problem of world homelessness, because you won't. All I want to see, and I think this is all anybody wants to see right now, is some immediate action of how we can alleviate the problem that we have right now. We have a lot of people that were displaced. They now no longer have their survival gear. They're out in the elements. There are not enough beds. We know this, so let's not even argue this anymore, okay? So what are we gonna do about that? Because all eyes are on you right now, and I do think that there are things that can be done so these people don't die, basically. You know, you can set up warming stations. This is not difficult. You can expand on your outreach groups, going out there during the day, during the night, the middle of the night, providing these people with things that they need. so they can make it through another night until we can get them a bed or placed somewhere. And when I teach my class in homelessness, I always leave people with this thought. Every single one of you is one life event away from being in that situation. You are not immune, none of you. And pray that you have a solid support system in place because everyone is not so lucky. Thank you for your time. One's the ladies.
Does anyone have any questions? Want to comment on that?
Encampment suites, I guess that's the word we're using, or is the city still planning to go ahead with their schedule? I actually don't know.
As far as I know, I think they are at this point. I know there are a number of agenda items on the city council meeting on Tuesday, and I don't know if that will change anything. But I think at this point, yeah, they're still pretty simple. Ron?
Is some representative of this kind of concern group going to be speaking on Tuesday night?
I definitely encourage people to sign up. You need to do so by 4 o'clock on Tuesday.
She has to share that story with the council, like all of them.
It was really powerful.
And also really, really personal. I don't feel like I have the right to
Ask.
She doesn't need to do anything. She's given us a huge key.
Yeah.
As far as I've heard, all the camps that are scheduled to be cleaned out are already done. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I was under the impression that it was Stackpole, Plain, and Dog Park. I may be mistaken. You're looking at me like I'm.
Well, I thought they were also gonna clean up the small encampment at Faber Street by the Elliott Church.
Okay.
But we've we've been preparing people for that, but we don't have it clear.
Yeah, I hadn't heard
I'm
that.
really sure I understand what cleanup means. They get arrested for vagrancy, they come in, they throw out all of their personal belongings, and then they're released.
I don't think there's arrests typically made. They kind of just say, time to go, and then everything that isn't carried away is thrown out. Yes.
I don't believe the other camps were cleaned out on Thursday and Friday. We were down there. And I know that the ones on Summer Street weren't over the weekend either.
Yeah.
So I think what we sort of wanted to do today was work on Brad's list and talk about if there's anything else that needs to be added to that, because where we can start is, I mean, obviously this is an enormous problem. It is systemic, you know, affordable housing is a major issue. Obviously getting services is a major issue. But what a small thing we can do, at least to start with, is to work on Brad's list, make a plan for what happens during these sweeps, if they happen. Obviously, we would prefer they did not, but if they happen, what needs to occur to make this done in a humane way, to treat these people with empathy, to treat these as human beings and get them into housing.
Can I suggest that we structure Brad's suggestions around the 7 principles?
Yeah.
That come from federal government, so that we can say really clearly, well, to accomplish principle number 1, we recommend A, B, and C. Like, I think, for example, to have a staff member from the Transitional Living Center go to the camp and begin the intake process in the camp. And if someone's not eligible for the shelter or refuses the shelter, then to begin a process of where else they can go.
Yeah.
Because both of those are realities, that either people aren't eligible because of previous problems they've had there, or they're just not willing to go there.
Yeah.
And I can understand why, but the reality is we don't have another congregate option in Lowell. And I don't know how many, even the hotel beds are going to be gone by the end of March.
Yeah.
So, but if we could, I think using the framework of the 7
Yeah.
national standards and putting our points underneath them would help really say that these are connected to what the federal government says is the appropriate way to close an encampment.
Yeah, very good. Comments, any other comments?
I think, some things will come to mind just listening to stories. I'm thinking the objections that get lifted up when it's time to move on are very humane things. Like I can't go because, they're going to take away my pet, and my support animal, or I'm going to be separated from relationships that I've built around this situation, and I feel, that I'm being basically taken away and put someplace where my life will, as I know it, will be ending. I don't know what other objections would be brought up. I'm sure people who are closer to this situation understand by listening, what's going on.
Oh, thank you. Lisa?
Hi, I'm just here for your friendly reminder that it is 7 o'clock, and if we are going to continue this conversation, we need to respect people's time and ask if they're okay with that, or find a way to wrap up and make some next steps. Thank you.
Okay, is everyone okay with us just going over just a little bit? Okay, everyone online, I can't see all of you. I'm guessing you don't have any major objections. Let's just go to Jamie and then we'll wrap up if that's okay.
A couple of comments. I think when we make plans that are just for a specific group of the homeless community is just to consider how that impacts the larger social group of that community within each other. I know that when we were asked to have folks leave our congregate setting, the sanctuary, just a few weeks ago, it actually, hearing that they were holding beds and holding hotel rooms, or there was some kind of plan that was trying to happen, really did cause a lot of animosity and kind of some weird conversations within the group itself of, we anticipate about 150 people that are outside. But, because if there's somebody that's been, so the way that it works, if I'm homeless right now, I can go to the shelter right now and wait in line and hopefully, get into the first like 30, 40 people, depending on what they do. Sometimes they take more if it's really bad weather like tonight. So if I'm in there every single night waiting and I get my bed, and then as people leave, there's 75 like regular dorm beds that's like your bed, you don't have to wait in line anymore. There's like two groups there. So if one of those regular beds moves, I myself, who's been waiting in line every night, can go into one of those like more permanent beds. So I think when you're there asking for help every single day, and then there's other groups that really want to stay where they want to stay, whether it's the encampment or some other thing, which I don't agree with how they are right now, but it could be other options, that they're going to all of a sudden put aside 10 beds and there's empty beds, and put aside 10 hotel rooms for a particular group that they're not necessarily asking to leave. When there's folks that are desperately trying every single night, trying to get into the shelter, they're pushed aside because of a decision made by the city. It gets very, very complicated. It causes a lot of anxiety, fights, physical altercations, like how I've been here every night waiting in line in the cold for an hour, doing my due diligence. I'm working. I want to get into the shelter, people that are okay with it, or they don't mind staying there, or they're not banned. And then the whole system gets shifted when these different things happen, and the way that it just impacts all of the work and within the community, it's just a kind of a complex issue. So it would be great to understand what options we're looking at, because certainly the people that are waiting in line every night that can only take a backpack, they're storing their stuff from whatever happened with them in a bush somewhere, or the issue of storage, maybe they got evicted or whatever happened to them. Everyone that's kind of in homelessness are all storing their stuff someplace. So, because you can only bring a small amount of items into any shelter, of course. So I just get concerned. Yes, obviously, the folks that are in the encampments are one group of people, but the folks that are in doorways and downtown and other areas that may not be known are in the same type of situation. So I think, is there an immediate need if cleaning up the encampments is where this is going 100%? that needs to be addressed in a way that's humane and better than what we're doing and following an evidence-based model. But it's a small population of, you know, a larger group that we're not really making any of the accommodation. It just gets a little bit complicated. So I think that this is really, really smart, that we're looking at this, you know, pretty detailed and much more humane. But there's, you know, there's other individuals that are homeless that just aren't living in a social setting, in a you know, in a wood setting or in a group setting, that are in the same situation, that we're not, you know, we're not having that conversation. So this is a piece of, not a huge conversation, but a couple of other groups of people that we just should be aware of, kind of the details of what that really looks like kind of on the ground with the things that they're dealing with, medication and losing things and literally storing things, who knows where, losing things. You know, because again, when we're talking to Sam Smith, who's in line every night, who's trying to get in, and then he feels like the whole system, that pipeline gets disrupted because, you know, we've decided to move a whole group of people and kind of bypass the line or bypass waiting lists. It just makes it difficult because we share a very specific process now for 8 years, and it just feels a little disjointed. So I think anything's better than what we're doing right now, as long as we're taking into consideration the real referral process that happens on the ground, you know, because it just makes it more difficult, you know, for the folks that aren't part of that community, because they all know each other. They've all been in and out of those type of settings. So it's just a complex issue, for sure. And I will say earlier, you guys were asking about numbers. I know we had 270 people on the citywide list. I made a note of that. If we're trying to count pets and numbers, even though they don't always quite, you know, match with what the need is. And I think it was we registered about 180 people last year that we have significant data on. I think about 45% of those folks have, you know, 3+.
Lost.
We can reach out to Jamie to see if we can have her send those stats and we can put them in our notes.
Yeah, agreed. So, obviously our next slide is to talk about our next meeting, but I'm wondering if our next meeting should be, or should we work on, I think what we should do is maybe create a Google Doc that starts with the national list and then adds your list afterwards, work on combining it and editing it and figuring out what's going to be, you know, what the best thing, because it needs to be clear and succinct. And then I don't know if we want to do that over the course of the month, or if we want to meet again, our meeting would be February 26th and talk about it then. What are your all thoughts about that?
I think it'd be reasonable for us to present something at that next meeting
Okay.
for review by the, you know, the members of that meeting, and kind of look over it together and share last thoughts before it's submitted.
Yeah, I would love to see an opportunity once there's a final draft. I mean, I don't want as many people editing this thing. For organizations like churches to sign on, or other agencies, because
Definitely.
I think I would sign on for my organization. So if that's helpful, to send a letter that has organization support, not just in addition to individual people.
Yeah, we could make like a Google form or whatever, so that way people could sign on that way.
And then maybe we could publish it in the Lowell Sun.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. What were you gonna say, Ron?
I think in order for this to be realistic, explicit about, there has to be a short-term tactical plan and a long-term strategic approach to fixing the structural problem, because otherwise we're just going to be chasing our tails forever.
I think those are two different issues though. So, you know, that's something we need to discuss, but for now, we'll just keep it to what's gonna happen when these happen, because they will inevitably happen. So our next meeting will be on February 20th. I'm sorry.
I know I was supposed to be taking the notes, but the point was made that at the next meeting, we need to submit some document that we finalize to present these standards. Who is we? I think in addition to a plan, we need to know who's working on this and body. Who is the we that's going to be doing this? Brad, what were you thinking?
So right now, how it's work, you know, basically I have a list of things. I took in some notes of things Maria had put in. Chris and Dee have kind of reviewed and spoken with Tippa about the Boston homeless liaison protocol. The intent would be to make a Lowell version of that.
We could just compile, if anyone is interested in being involved, shoot me an email and or Brad, and we'll get you on the document. We can work on it and maybe set up another meeting in a couple of weeks to work on it together over Zoom.
Sure. So there is already sort of an informal working group that has been doing this together.
I suppose we've just kind of talked about it as it was part of the invitation for me to be here tonight.
Okay. I think we need to formalize that.
Well, we started as he was invited, to be honest, he was invited to the coordinating committee.
Yeah.
And that's where we started talking about it. So it's basically, it doesn't have to be everyone on the coordinating committee, but other people are welcome to join if you feel passionately about this and you want to help. Let us know and we'll get you in on that meeting. We'll put together a poll to figure out what.
Jamie's back.
Oh,
Jamie?
Hi, sorry, I'm on my phone now. My computer died. I think just what I was getting at, so we have a significant amount of data when ourselves and Mary Shannon set up, we were funded by the city to be a central intake place for the homeless. We have a significant amount of data. So any recommendations that are made to physically move people or, offer options, we should look at that data definitely, whether it's physical disabilities or those services that people might need. I think, as I said, it's about 40 to 45% of people have 3+ variables going on as far as physical disabilities. But I want to say about 50% have some kind of brain injury. And I think it was 30% might be it, living with addiction. The encouraging thing to speak to, I think, Eric or other people, is that only about 20% of the individuals, thus just the 180 from the past year that we registered that are outside sleepers, are chronically homeless. So those folks have been homeless for more than a year. 80% of those folks were not chronically homeless, which means, really with more intake and more one-on-one, that, whether it's work or whatever those barriers may be, ID, that, they're not so far into their homelessness that they're, kind of a lost cause or whatever the heck we think is going on with them, so be encouraged. I mean, there's definitely other opportunities for these folks that, I just feel like we have a very small population in Lowell, and we see the data, so it's easy for us to kind of see the out sometimes, but certainly any of these agreements or recommendations should probably look at some of the data and that's data that we submit to the state because of the different contracts that we have. So I'll certainly send all of that to whoever wants to look at it as you think about these recommendations, for sure.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll plan on doing our next meeting on February 26th. We'll talk about the finalized list at that point. If you're interested in helping, you can use any of the email addresses that we've given during the meeting. contact@solidaritylowell.com is fine. You can use marissa@solidaritylowell.com is fine. bradthedutch@gmail.com is fine. And the last question we have is, who will help us with reminder calls and texts about the next meeting?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know what's going on for tonight. When's the snow supposed to start?
We can't hear what's going on in the room.
Okay, so Chris was just saying that in order to help with reminder texts, it's very easy. She sends you a script
All you have to do is copy and paste it into 10 different phone numbers, 10 different texts, super easy. If you're interested in helping, please send us an email. You can always join us online on our Facebook page, which is where you can see public events, photos, and more, but you would miss out on the discussion. That happens in the Facebook group, where you can have access to all of our events, including those for members only. I don't know why the Slack is still on there. We don't use that. You can visit our website or follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you, everybody in person. And thank you, everybody online. Have a good evening.
I'd like to.
Thank you all.
That's actually-